Hello and welcome back to the Boxing Social podcast with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. Before we get started, as always, just like to remind everybody to please follow and subscribe, turn those notifications on for all the latest boxing news. Joined today by the one and only KALLE SAUERLAND in the building. How are you, KALLE? Nice to see you.
It's great to be here in the flesh. I mean, we've done a few podcasts or what you call
just
them,
Zoom interviews, haven't we? Yeah.
Interviews and things like that over the last year and a half, haven't we? Without seeing each other. So good to see you, mate.
I'm trying to think of the last time I saw you. I think it might have been Taylor Prograis.
October
2019. So that's a long old time.
Well, the last time I saw the old man until about a month ago. He was down in South Africa the whole time. So I hadn't seen him in a year and a half, over a year and a half, you know.
How's he keeping?
He's good. He met his new granddaughter recently for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And he's in top shape. He's sending us lots of, you know, matchmaking ideas, and he was at the Hrgović fight last weekend, so it was good to have the three Sauerlands all together at one show. But yeah, I mean, you know, it was a show about getting people out, and to see the old man make the trip to Austria, I was like, "You sure you're coming?" He said, "Yeah." So you can tell he's missed lockdown, boxing in lockdown. He didn't go to any shows during lockdown, so he was just happy to, I think, watch live boxing. It's probably the longest time in probably 50 years that he hasn't watched live boxing. So it was good. It was great to see him, and it was a good night in Austria.
Yeah, it's nice to see that he's retained that zest for boxing. As we all know, it's not always the case.
Something, you know, he's tried to get rid of it many times over many years and many decades, but he's never managed to. So he's certainly not going to do that at 81.
Right, first and foremost, let's start with the most recent news, which is, of course, yesterday, your announcement of new signings over at Wasserman Boxing. It feels like only yesterday I was speaking to you about the new venture, and it is now starting to take shape. So talk to us a little bit about the developments.
And I remember the first time we spoke about the new venture, it was back in March, wasn't it? And guess what? I said 6 months. Give us 6 months and you'll see what we're shaping up to do. You see that from a UK perspective. There's obviously lots going on outside the UK for us. Some big news in Germany coming up. Very big news in Germany coming up. We've got a big event we're just about to announce. In fact, let's do that right here. We're going to announce Mairis Briedis returning to the ring in October 16th, in Las Rigas, Latvia. A voluntary challenge, a voluntary defense of his IBF belt. We're just going through the procedures with the IBF on that. And so it's great to be back there. We've obviously got October 2nd at Wembley Arena, live on Sky. And so, yeah, 6 months later, here we are. Sort of, you know, Boris Johnson's cancelled Corona, at least in the UK. So it's all looking good. It's all feeling rosy. And it was, you know, the weekend, you know, Austria was a small event on the basis of it, but it felt so good to be back with some fans in there. We were allowed 1,500. We had 1,500, and they were a noisy 1,500. You have 1,500 Croatians in a stadium, and it feels good, you know. So it was good fun, and you know, coming back on those 6 months, it's been about setting up the infrastructure, getting the signings done. I mean, Chris Eubank Jr. came a little bit before the big announcement with Wasserman, but of course everyone can realise now it was part of the plan with Wasserman, and you know, we struck the deal with Sky and with Boxer to do the shows on Sky, which is fantastic, and we're looking forward to working together with them. Obviously, it's going to be new working with Boxer. With Sky, we've worked with over, I don't know, hundreds of fights and lots and lots of big and small events, from, I don't know, Hey Klitschko to Kessler Froch to Murray Abraham, the Smith Abraham fights, and so we've got actually a very long history with Sky. Boxer will be something new. That'll be interesting, and you know, it's fantastic. So you know, we've got those dates secured on Sky, and the stable's building. You know, we've got another broadcast deal we're just about to announce probably next week, which is also going to be an interesting one. So there's lots and lots happening.
Seems like we're going to be seeing plenty of you then. You've got all of these announcements and
yeah, I mean,
announcements.
You know, we'll be beating that drum, banging that drum for our fighters. That's what it is, and the the stable in the UK is getting bigger, but also outside the UK, there's a few names that are going to be joining the gang as well, and it's it's focusing bit by bit. So we've obviously focused heavily on the UK in the last 6 months, and there's one or other two territories. I mentioned it yesterday to everyone, so it's not a secret, but Holland is one that we're looking at very closely at the moment. Obviously Scandinavia, where we've got our historic roots there. You'll be seeing shows there. So, Wasserman is very much about still our international approach. We don't see ourselves as a UK promoter. We're just building that UK stable nicely. And, if we can get to sort of 10 to 15 shows a year in the UK, that's the sort of volume we want to be producing here. Whether that's with one broadcaster or whether that's with numerous broadcasters, we'll wait and see. I mean, our strength has always been the versatility of working with different promoters and platforms, and and in Germany we've more or less stuck always with one, but even there it looks like the markets, everything's changing in boxing, and you see this old school approach. I still think is very important, but the media part is fracturing in a positive way. Fracture you can also see as a negative, but in a positive way, and it's almost like every day there's a new outlet, a new platform, a new angle, and I think that's great for boxing. I think if you look just alone in the last 6 months, you've had obviously DAZN going global, which everyone has sort of been the best unkept secret in boxing for the last 2 years, but they finally went and done that, and that's fantastic for boxing. That's a great platform. But you see the likes of Triller, and I saw they're getting a lot of criticism for the Holyfield fight at the weekend, which was poor matchmaking, but overall they've also attracted new eyeballs to the sport. So, I wouldn't be a fan of every fight they've done, but I'm sure they were not a fight of every fight I've done. So
they had a really good show on last night, actually.
And
doing the verses with the music, and
I've spoken to Ryan Cavan. He seems like a really sort of creatively intelligent person who's really backing this, and that's fantastic for boxing to have people like that knocking around. He's also the producer of one of my favourite movies, The Fighter. So that's great, and they seem to have a good setup there with Peter Khan, and I think that's really good for boxing. They take a different angle on it, and hey, who's to say that's wrong? The numbers, and I know there's a lot of people saying, well, I don't believe the numbers. Well, let's take half the numbers they're putting out there. It's still fantastic, So let's not knock things always in our sport. Even if we're not involved in it, I've got nothing to do with Triller. I've got no vested interests in it. I haven't got an ongoing conversation with Triller about some business, and I'm still saying it's a fantastic thing for boxing. It's a great platform for boxing, and they've certainly given me some things to think about.
They certainly have, and
bring
just
Snoop Dogg in there. I mean, how fantastic is that?
I think with that Donald Trump at the weekend commentating,
that's probably the single greatest promotional move I've ever seen in boxing. I mean, honestly, to get a president, did he actually commentate on the fight? He commentated
on Holyfield Belfort, yeah,
but delayed, because there was a bit of a spin on it. First of all, I read it was like live. Wasn't like the?
I have to say I didn't stop and watch the show.
I didn't know.
I watched David Haye move around with Joe Fournier for a bit and then went to bed.
Yeah, I watched Hayes walking. That was good. But no, I mean, look, it's thinking outside the box, and that's fresh eyes on boxing. And hey, I guess I tell you what, there'll be some other platforms that are taking from that and adding it to their platform, and that's great. It was like when we came out with the circular lights in World Boxing Super Series. Now you see a lot of very similar light trusses slowly going up.
We all know who the pioneers were, Alex.
Yeah, exactly. Copyright.
What's going on with the World Boxing Super Series?
Yeah, we announced
I'm the biggest
females.
fan of the World Boxing Super Series.
I know. It is a tough time for tournaments. Tournaments, there's only really one real tournament in boxing, but it's tough. It's tough at the moment to make that season fit with the different territories and the pandemic. I know in the UK, as I said, Johnson cancelled Corona, but for example, in Germany at the moment, it's still impossible to promote. I mean, feasible events that fit the World Boxing Super Series, as an example. So I think around the end of this year will be hopefully the announcement of the lineup, and there we're very, very advanced. And you know, it's great to be doing it with the women on as a standalone. And we said, look, we did 2 in season 1. We did the super mids and the cruisers, of course. We did in the second season, we went with the cruisers, the super lightweights and the bantams, and then obviously Corona hit, and we managed to get that final out between the lockdowns, which we were delighted to do, and it was a great final with Breedis and Dorticos. But then we sort of said, well, yeah, but this tournament, we're going to have to focus on a weight and just get that to keep the tournament feeling going. And that's what we're doing, and that's what we're doing with the females. So, watch this space. But we are a couple of months off that, to be honest. That's the difference between promoting an event and a Champions League of boxing. As simple as that. It is more complicated. You have factors in there that you can't control. I can't control if there's a Korean fight and a French girl in the quarterfinals, and I've got to make a plan for maybe an event in France in the semi-final, or is it in Korea? And the whole journey of where the tournament should be going, which is normally quite easy to do, is a moving target, and it's an extremely complicated one. But it is getting better. We're not moaning, because I think the world is in extra time with COVID. That's my feeling, on a personal note, and I think that will rub off on everything around our business. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine it being quite difficult, because one of the things that the World Boxing Super Series has always done very well is tell the story throughout the tournament. So, for example, season 1 that we just spoke about there with the super middles, having Eubank following Groves and knowing where those fights are going to be and being able to tell that story, which obviously is taken away by the uncertainty during the pandemic.
It absolutely. And what's the worst thing when you're watching a movie or reading a book is having a break from it. And that's not what we want, Some people said, "Oh, season 2, that took so long." I said, "Well, no, it didn't. The 2 finals pre-pandemic were within 12 months of their first fight, so they had 3 top fights in 1 year.
Which is not
at that level. That is forget the pandemic. Just remember there was a time before the pandemic, and that's the storytelling power of the World Boxing Super Series. The storytelling power was in season 1. Chris Eubank Jr. blowing away Yildirim in Turkish Germany, with Galatasaray flags, and walking through there with a Union Jack and cold as ice, knocking him cold out. And a week later, us sitting in Wembley Arena, George Groves defeating Jamie Cox, Eubank Jr. getting in that ring, and we all knew at that stage, right, massive UK semi-final in the MEN. It's going to be all guns blazing, but we knew that at the time. That was what made that semi-final. If you would have put Groves versus Eubank outside the tournament, big fight, no doubt about it. Big fight. Now I can promote both of them, and it would have been a huge fight, but nothing like the storyline that set it up through the tournament, knowing that the place in the final was at stake, etc., etc. So those storylines you need to have within a direct touching distance of each other, and not the dynamics have moved on the tournament. We go, well, we gotta look at the regulations in this country and that unfortunately that is still a case in certain places.
All right, we're going to try and move quite quickly because we are pressed for time today. You mentioned Filip Hrgović earlier on in the interview. What's going on with Filip Hrgović? Is he going to fight for an IBF Final Eliminator soon? It seems like we've been waiting for this for a long time.
What's
the latest?
You're not the only one. Do you think we wanted to get him out in a skiing village in Austria with 3 weeks' notice last week. No, we didn't. That was simply, and we're very grateful the IBF gave us the permission to go and do that. But I think the IBF also saw the situation we've been put in this year. So let's just I'll do a very quick recap, just to understand. He went for camp January the 3rd in Miami. Went out to camp, as he always does, 3rd of January. This all sounds very glamorous, by the way. In the middle of lockdown, he got to go to Miami, you know. But he's not there to swan down South Beach. He's there in a gym, and when he trains, he takes it above and beyond. So we had a show planned on the zone for March. Martin Bakole, just before signature, everything fine. Suddenly, in comes the golden letter. The golden letter being the letter from the IBF, you are boxing the final eliminator to box Anthony Joshua. What happens? Filip says, not even a question. I said, well, you don't have I'm not asking you. This is what we're doing. And he's like, oh my God, this is like a dream come true. He's emotional. He's happy. And who is it? And I said, well, that's the thing. So we go down the list and see who wants to fight. I can't tell you who you're fighting. And he goes, it will be in March. I said, no, well, it definitely won't be in March. This is now. So we moved the date then to July to give us that time. Obviously, we had to negotiate with the opponent, win a purse bid or whatever it was. Went down that list, Charles Martin, and the names, you can go and have a look on the IBF rankings, but the names are all prominent names, from Ortiz to Joseph Parker.
Michael Hunter was the name that was mentioned.
Yeah, I'll get to him in a minute. But we ended up with Michael Hunter. So Michael Hunter accepts. That's the way the rules work. And the process stops. We negotiate. We reach a deal. Then he says, no, the deal's off. We call the purse bid off. Takes another 2 weeks. Eventually, we got a purse bid after a long delay. We win the purse bid. We send him the contracts. IBF rules state 2 weeks. 2 weeks, standard contract. Not these aren't KALLE SAUERLAND special contracts. These are IBF contracts, bout contracts for a bout. I think it was July the 9th. And exactly, he didn't wait a day. He waited the full 2 weeks to come out and say, no, I'm out. We said, are you joking? So we wasted these pretty much 2 and something months. Didn't want the fight. It was, I think the purse bid summed up to something like $400,000. Not a bad day's pay. But you're boxing a human being called Filip Hrgović. He's only human, to fight against Anthony Joshua for a payday of, several $1 million. Yeah? So it's like for the greatest prize in the sport that you're in. So I don't know. That's where we ended up. It was very disappointing, and then we kept on going down the list, and we even unofficially, which you're supposed to go from the top 10, we were unofficially even talking to the top 15, the other 5, Otto Warlins and all these guys, and they all said no as well. So, but these people didn't say no, and this is just me saying as a promoter, no one wants to fight my guy. They put it right into the IBF. So this is for me. I've never been in that situation before, and now we are going to go back down that list. The difference is now a lot of those people, despite the big words, oh no, we've got this fight on. We got to remember, like Otto Warlin at the time was saying, no, we can't do it because we're boxing on the undercard of. And I'm thinking, boxing on the undercard, you've got the chance to box as main event in the final eliminator for the heavyweight world championship. Do you believe in yourself or not? Yeah. But these guys were coming up with excuses of, I'm boxing here, I'm boxing there. Hunter said he was boxing on Triller. Hunter ended up boxing on some undercard somewhere for $20,000. Yeah, so he can box 20 times on that undercard or box Filip once. And guess what? A lot of people made Hunter the favourite. So I don't know. I've said enough on that subject. But before the end of the year, we will fight the final eliminator for the IBF Heavyweight Championship of the World.
Martin Bakole seems to be the name that people are again talking about.
I've got to say, but we've had a bit of back and forth on social with Billy, his trainer, who's actually a top fella. I don't knock him. Those guys, they wanted that fight in March, and I was a bit like, yeah, now you want to tune up before and all that. I said, do me a favour. We're going to achieve out of a tune-up, but there were certain issues around them, so I don't think they ducked the fight. I think out of the top 15, they were the one. That's why we keep on saying Bakodi. Bakodi's actually number 15 in the rankings, so he's the last one on that list. He is fighting this weekend. I do think, if I look at some of those names in the top 10, I'm hoping he gets a push up the rankings, and he's one I'm sure would take that opportunity because, you know, it is that great chance, you know. So anyways, Filip is the easiest because he says, "Can I stop sending me the names? Just put them in the ring and don't even tell me who they are before." He's the most simple guy, and it's great to work with.
Now, of course, yesterday I've mentioned the fact that there was the glamorous announcement over at Wasserman HQ with your new signings. We mentioned Chris Eubank Jr., who was, of course, unveiled a number of months ago, returns to the ring on October the 2nd, barring any slip-ups, which, of course, we hope we don't see. What's the plan for him? There's all sorts of talk about Billy Joe Saunders, a potential rematch with him at the end of the year. Gennady Golovkin has been a name that's kind of followed him around in his career.
Yeah,
it's got to be a big fight.
I mean,
at the end of the year.
Well, it was. We were lined up for a very big fight in September, and then obviously there were certain things that happened, personal, very very tragic personal circumstances, and he had a severe bout of COVID. So we had a rethink on plans. We had a fight lined up. I mean, no secret now, Andrade in September. We looked at it and said, "No, look, we would love that fight, but unfortunately, the time now is got to be. We've got to change it around a bit. He's now fighting a guy in the world rankings, who's a guy he's got to beat. But it's not so much the opponent almost. It's that, you know, he's got to come out of that frame of mind now, and that if you look what he's been through." He's got a battle on itself, so it makes October the 2nd, I guess, for the spectator, in some way, an interesting way to see how Eubank has coped, you know, and Chris is a dedicated trainer, and it's almost like he's trained his way out of these depths of some of the hardest times he'll ever face in his life. Forget what's in the ring, you know. So that's going to be very interesting then, and then. You know, I think it's unrealistic to think we're going to have a Golovkin fight later this year. That's something definitely for next year. He's lined up to fight Murata. We don't know the situation in Tokyo with COVID. But I've said, you know, Saunders, I also think this year's going to be, you know, I don't see Billy returning to the ring later this year. But that's a big one for next year. I think you look at the Andrades, you look at the domestically, Liam Williams is one I like very much. And there's a long list. It can go on. Charlo, Andrade, I just mentioned, you know, and those are all fights that will happen. We just have to see the timeline, and we had to adjust a bit. You know, it wasn't the script that we had ready for this year, but you know, October 2nd is something we need to get out of the way, and then you know, we're looking to go again, and probably in December.
We've naturally got through this very, very quickly, as me and you do when we get together and talk. Final word I want to give to you on the new talent, the new young talent that Wasserman have signed. Of course, we had one in here already earlier on today, Harlem Eubank. Nathan Gorman, who I think people still forget, is still very much a pop, certainly for a heavyweight.
Totally.
There's been Brad Pauls, Linus Udofia. You know, you've signed a
Razor Ali, Chloe Watson. Josh Kelly. I mean, you know, we talk about Josh Kelly like he's not young talent. Josh Kelly's just very, very young. I mean, and he was the golden boy at Sky, and then, you know, obviously had the setback, and that's what fighters get in their careers. You know, they come back from that. So there's lots of Matty Harris, the heavyweight, looks fantastic. Hosea Stewart's fantastic as well. Tiny, I call him. You see the size of him?
Yeah,
big boy. So it's an exciting UK squad of fighters from the very, very top to the ones who are getting closer to being there to young ones who are just starting out on a journey. So it's great fun.
Any in particular one for people to watch out for? I know I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit.
Well, I mean, the Razor Ali story is fantastic. Just as a storyline, you want to read a storyline about a fighter, a real fighter story. Forget whatever he wins in that ring. But the Razor Ali story is one that's going to come out. That's crazy. I think out of all of them, the one I'm looking forward to proving a lot of people wrong with is Josh Kelly, because he's one. I know that from building guys up on big TV platforms, and they get pushed, and then they take that stumble, and it doesn't mean the kid is so talented and he's fun to watch. So he's one I'm personally looking forward to really turning around, and the other ones, you know, we're going to be there guiding him. luckily, we've got experience in all the weight classes that we've made world champions at. Those heavyweights, they know the heavyweight champions we've promoted over the years, from Holyfield to Klitschko to Hay to Valuev to Povetkin, you know. So there's a lot of heavyweight champions who've come out of our stable, or we promoted or co-promoted or whatever it is. And that's, you know, experience we can pass on, and that's what we're looking to do.
Okay, well, Kalle, I'm going to give the final word to you. There's your camera there.
That's that one there. There's so many cameras in this room. That's my camera.
That's your camera.
By the way, I've never seen this studio. I feel like I'm in Hollywood here.
Well, so you're the first person that we've brought in.
Fantastic.
Apart from the other two that we had in before, that's fine.
So that's my camera.
That's your
looking
camera.
at the camera.
Tell people what to expect from Wasserman Boxing over the next 12 months.
Very, very simple. What I said on the first day, taking it to another level.
There we have it. Kalle Sauerland, thanks very much for popping down to the Boxing Social
Lovely
Studio. We'll do it again sometime when we're not.
I didn't even get to drink my coffee. We couldn't stop talking. I'm looking at the coffee getting cold.
You've had enough coffees. You're all right. Thanks very much for stopping by, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
Cheers.